Hi everyone, it's FSketcher fashion drawing tutorials, and we start with this basic walking pose. And in this lesson we're going to render total leather look from Roberto Cavalli collection. And I'm starting with the collar, and as you remember, we draw color using two lines, one that goes in the front and surrounds the neck in the front part, and the other one that goes along the shoulder. Here I'm starting drawing those lines a bit higher than the shoulder line because we have this standing collar and we need to show a bit the height. And just follow me. You can see here we can define the width of the collar and its shape. I try to draw it a bit differently on both sides. Also pay attention to the closing, in which direction we have the buttons on which side, because they are different for women and men. So the shirt is a bit oversized, not too much, just drawing the seam line a bit further than the shoulder points. And yeah, so here usually we have this angular folds at the waist because it just gets inside the trousers. And then always draw the structure, the lines that we used to build arms and legs. Here I'm not drawing the whole arm, but at least with the structure I can see where my wrist starts and I can draw this base part. Because when you don't draw the structure, you can end up with very unnaturally looking arm, or the arm that is just seems broken or something like that. And here I'm drawing the details of your sleeves. Here we have the cuff part. And well, I'm drawing it as a straight line, the outer edge, because the width of the sleeve lets me be safe with the shape of the arm, so it's just inside, it's possible. So whenever you draw hands at the angle, try to draw the base and the part where we have the fingers as ellipses in 3D. It's a bit different, it's a completely other topic that must be taught separately, so I'm not going to focus on that. You can draw just following me the other hand, or you can draw it similar to the left side arm and hand, just the basic position of the hand. But it's always important just to break the hand into small pieces, like the palm part, which is usually 4 or 5 angular shape and with 4 or 5 corners, and then you add fingers as like sausages. So it's like for the other lesson, definitely. I will add some tips on that. I think it's better to show that as an image than with the words, explain with the words. So I'm showing the other sleeve. Here it's important to pay attention to the width of the sleeve, because so it's like the same on both sides. And the same with the trousers, like, so it's not too tight on one side and loose on the other one. Whenever you illustrate some design, try to exaggerate certain things. Like, for example, if the hemline of the trousers is wider, then draw it a bit more wide than what you see, because our drawing is stretched, and if you draw the same width as you see on the actual photo, you can end up with too stretched and too narrow closing. So we have more wrinkles on the bent leg. You will need some surface, like solid surface that doesn't absorb marker. In my case it's metal, but you can use metal, plastic, any surface. We're going to use it as a palette. You can use a palette for paint, it will work. So now I'm working with a black marker, and I'm just going to color all the parts that I see as black, like super dark, the ones that in the parts that have the deepest shadow. And even if it's like super dark gray, sometimes I still use black marker for those parts, because marker is not that opaque. I mean, the opacity is not 100%, so it's still a bit lighter than black pencil. So in case I need to show the difference, I will use a black pencil on the top. And more you draw different closing types, you can see that there is some it's not the random parts where we add shadows and highlights. For example, here you can see that the central part of the arm is the most highlighted, because sleeve is, it's like a cylinder, it's like a tube. And usually if you've ever drawn, like at school, when you drew the cylinder, the central part that is most prominent to us, like the central part, is the most lit, and the sides that go to the back are darker. And your breast part is also lit, and because the fabric part is elevated, we have these wrinkles that are like lines, thinning lines. You can see on the top there are like 2, 3, and 2 at the bottom, at the breast. So, and we're going to have this elevated part on the left side as well. And well, there are no rules. Wrinkles, they are always different. And I'm showing you how to depict that. I'm not showing you the rules of how you draw these wrinkles, because they are always different. More you draw, more you intuitively draw those things later when you draw something else. So it's more about practice. It's always about practice. There is no something that you can learn like right now, one time, and then you are perfect at drawing that. You can just improve bit by bit. So now there are many things that I do intuitively, but it's because of years of drawing. And it might be scary, years, but it's not, like time passes really fast. Now I'm using warm gray 4. It is optional, that's why I'm not including warm gray 4 into the list of tools, because I just want, like recently I really like mixing different colors. So I'm spreading black marker on the metal surface, taking blender. Blender is transparent marker. So it has just this alcohol in it, and that's it. So I'm dipping it into black marker and working on the edges, and just trying to spread marker from black area closer to the center of that shape. But I'm following the shape. So I'm really coming from all the borders to the center. I really need to build this transition from black and then get dark gray and light and like 50 shades of gray towards the center, because more you work with your blender, less black pigment you get. So it's really important to work from the darker parts towards the center. Now you can see like we get this beautiful shape. And blender is a marker that you always need for any super reflective like textures, and especially for smooth leather, like in this case. Like if you have some leather bags, you will definitely need blender. So if you buy markers, I would recommend to get like several ones, because you will use it quite often. And you know, when I have classes, like real face-to-face classes, and I teach rendering leather, sometimes, because all this work with details, it becomes tedious, and sometimes students, they get tired and they try to do it faster, sometimes with a wider nib, and this transition becomes not that smooth, and well, it won't look good, it won't look like real leather. You'll have like really like gray area and black area, and that's it, and you need get a gradient. So please watch in a full screen mode and try to get something like that. So now you can see I try to keep that, the bigger the area is, like this breast part, the more chances that the central part can stay like light. But when the area is really thin, like those wrinkles, sometimes you can lose them and they become just like gray in the end, or you can get really thin central part, but it's natural. That what would happen to highlights like in reality. You can also use this mix with black to draw certain wrinkles, like if you feel scared to draw some wrinkles with a black marker directly, you can draw them with a blender, or show like small depressions on the fabric, like small spots that are not that dark and they are not that deep, but you can perfectly show that with blender. And what is cool than just using gray is that blender lets you build more varieties. Like you can get super light gray, you can get super dark gray, and all with one marker. It just depends where you will use first, second, third stroke with the black marker on the top of blended tip. So I keep working. You can see how I'm thinning those lines and those spots, adding some more wrinkles. And also there might be a question, why wouldn't you just use some nice like oily white pencil? It's because pencil is a pencil, and pencil is very grainy. Whenever you add pencil on the marker, you'll see that this special texture of pencil, and which just doesn't work with leather, because leather is something smooth, a bit glossy. So if you just color everything with black and start adding highlights with white pencil, it will end up looking like velvet, because velvet is more like grainy and has this little like hair or textile threads, and it's completely different than leather. So that's why we work with blender. It is also possible to work with light gray, but the problem with super light gray, like ice gray or cool gray one, is that it's not the problem, but it's a bit just different, that it doesn't let you get to something that is lighter than that gray. So you can get a very sharp transition to the white that is left in the center. But it is also possible, like if you don't have a blend at your disposal, you can use gray. So now I'm using wider nib because I work with a huge area, and well, sometimes being a bit reckless in working with your tools gives also some nice results, a bit artistic, a bit careless strokes, very free, and yeah, it's also nice not to, you know, be too nervous about being perfect. So now I'm working, here we have not that many wrinkles, so for me it's easier to work with a wider nib to smooth down those edges, because it's faster. Also for the trousers, like for the thigh area, or if it's something tight and you don't have much of the wrinkles, you can use the wider nib of the marker as well. Okay, so now I'm showing all the thread lines. We have double thread line on the edge, and double thread line, this is the bottom part. And let's add the buttons. Also pay attention to the part, like how the shirt is closing. So if it makes sense to have button where you want to add it. Then I'm adding some deeper shadows. Usually if you have some light spot and just black spot next to it, then work just along the border. Add extra black. So, and also any area that's supposed to be darker, like between bodice and sleeve. So here, inside of that, like and shape, along that light line on both sides. Here, this lines along them as well. Also, you can outline the shirt itself, because marker still bleeds a little bit on the edges, and just to sharpen the edges, fine liner would work, because if you use pencil, it will be, as I told you, it will give that grain and it will look a bit fluffy. It's better to use pencil for the outline if it's a coat or some knitted item. Okay, so 1, 2. Also, if you have some a little bit lighter area, like between these super light lines and black edges, you can add some small wrinkles with a black pencil, like here, just some lines, extra ones. And here I'm adding a bit of white pencil, but not too much, just to intensify this light. Be very careful. So you can add some stronger highlights in the places where you feel that you added too much of black pigment. Or you can add some highlights in the places where you would like to add some extra, to show some wrinkles, the highlights on the wrinkles. So here I can add some extra ones, and at the bottom where the shirt is tucked inside of like trousers, there might be more folds. Here we can show this tension on the shoulder point. And highlights on the buttons. Here we have some strong highlights on the shoulders, but you can make them, you cannot make them, because it's just depends on the lighting. And let's add some highlights on the collar just to define it. And here I feel like there's too much of light on the top. I want just to darken it a little bit. The crotch of the trousers is a bit lower than the actual crotch area of the body. So I'm coloring, I'm starting from this backside leg because it's going to be a bit darker. And we have those bit diagonal wrinkles stretching from the crotch down, because our point of tension is the knee, and we just can totally color the low part. Here we have this diagonal wrinkle stretching towards your hip point, and here, because the trousers are quite tight, we have a very smooth like outline of the shadows on the sides. And let's get rid of the pencil strokes. Here we have this belt line. And again, here pay attention to the direction of the closure. We have some pockets. And I'm using Cool Gray 5, showing some wrinkles. Actually, I want to show them with black because I want to color everything on the right side with Cool Gray 5. So I want to have some spots. And then with Cool Gray 5, I'm coloring everything on the right side. So okay, so I'm spreading black marker again, and I'm going to work in the similar way as we worked with your shirt. So I'm trying to blend those edges to make them less defined, to build this gradient. And I'm working with the wider nip because we have this long wide area. And you can work like that with any color, like you can work with a blue, you can make a leather trousers in blue, in red, in violet, in any hue that you want. So here again, I can draw some lighter, thinner, like wrinkles. Here we have some seams, so I'm showing double line. You can do it with a pencil or fine liner, it doesn't matter. I'm showing the details of the trousers with a fine line pen. Here we have many double seams, like jeans. So here 2 lines, and the pockets also 2 lines. More of black. And some cool graphite. Let's darken a bit the right side. And with white ink pen you can use 05 or 08 if you use Sakura pens, just not too thick one. I'm showing highlights, just like some really strong ones and tiny ones that I couldn't show with markers. So we're working with last fragment of the trousers. Here usually we have some like triangles that stretch to knees whenever we have some, whenever it's bent a little bit. So if you pay attention to any trousers, you'll see some triangular folds. And we have just darker sides. Okay, just trying to make up some folds. Well, usually you might get something in the shape of a zigzag. If you have a huge spot, you can have something inside in the center. Now I'm working with blender again, and I'm working with a wider nib here, because here we have a huge like stretched lines, like stripes, and I can work along the edges with wider nib. Also, always remember, whenever you mix markers, whenever you dip one marker into another one, just clean it afterwards by spreading it on a white paper, because if you leave it, like if you leave, for example, blender with black on the top of it without cleaning the marker, then it might just always be a little bit gray. And if you work with some hues, it might just make the look dirty. And now I'm adding some extra highlights with white pencil. Here I want to add a bit of cool graphite on those 2 small side edges. So I colored everything with black and adding cool graphite right now. The subtle difference, but it's the details, you know, are important. Here I added fur coat and the hat, but it's just to finish the overall like sketch. But I'm not going to cover that. And that actually fur coat, I made a horrible fur coat. It just happens sometimes that you end up with something that you don't like. And I just added many pencil strokes of different colors and ended up with this result. Just tried to save the sketch. So, and Here I'm adding this belt, and I'm just drawing this row of S, like S shapes that are tilted diagonally, and as a result we get this chain shape. And the same, stretching down. And I'm just adding some, defining those pieces with a fine liner, some lines inside and at the bottom. And then you can add some shadows with a black pencil, and with some khaki or a bit bronze color of fine liner, or you can use marker, just touching very softly with a thin nib. Add, color these chains partially, so you leave some highlights. So for example, here I'm leaving highlights on both sides, like left and right side of each fragment of the chain. So please watch in a full screen mode so you can see what I'm talking about. Adding this fringe, just drawing it with a fine liner, not coloring it for no reason, just I like the way it looks. And also because we have, the fringe is made of leather or any textile, should be a bit wavy, so you don't draw it like a straight lines. Give it some life by making it very curvy. I'm using khaki for the base of your hair. Again, with the hair like colors, they all can be different. You can use some different markers. Just we start with some lighter marker for the highlights, and I'm going to add black in certain spots. Here I'm just following the actual image. That's why I'm just starting with the black, but usually when I draw hair, I show the highlights, then add a bit darker color, and then I add darker color, and then add like mid-tone between those two, and then I add pencil strokes. But here it's a bit different because I'm following the reference image. If you don't get something as you wish, and just don't feel frustrated, it just becomes better after some time. And the difference is enormous. Like, even when I see some drawings that are like half a year old, I feel like I don't like already. I see many things that are not that smooth or nice in my opinion. So more you draw, better you get, but try also to be critical to yourself and continuously learn. You'll get better for sure in anything, I think. So next I'm using, so I added some warm gray. I used first lighter gray, then added darker at the edges. And now using black pencil to add strokes. Also, I'm drawing strokes towards your forehead, so I get thinner edges for each stroke, like thinner ends, right? So yeah, so we get this dark, super dark brown that has a bit lighter brown, which is warm gray for the highlights. And one also very nice asset to have is silver pencil, because you can use any like purple or any other one if you have nice oily pencils or wax pencils. So they make a really nice highlights, like ones that I'm adding right now. It can be silver, but purple or like some light blue would work perfectly as well. So we are almost done. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and you'll make this leather and you will use this technique, and see you very soon next tutorial. Have a nice day.